Hi, everyone. Sorry I'm a bit late. How's everyone doing? Feel free to start asking questions. And I can also cover a couple of things that have been coming up. First thing that's come up and has always been coming up is how many emails and messages should I be sending in total to get profile building opportunities? Now, I question whether this is even the right question to ask. You should really be thinking instead about how many emails and messages you can send every single day to get profile building opportunities. Because if you think about the number of messages you need to send in total, that number might be so big that you just kind of don't send any messages and emails as a result because you think, oh, like 5,000 messages, that's quite a few messages. So what you should instead be doing is just focusing on the daily target that you can meet, say 30 messages, and just focus on that. And don't set a specific timeline for how long you want to keep this up. Instead, just do like 30 messages daily and just keep doing that. And if 30 messages seems far more reachable than 5,000 messages, then you'll just automatically do 30 messages every day. That is, if you keeping this up and doing outreach, over time you'll realize that you'll just crank out these messages automatically to people in your field who are involved in the kinds of activities you'll want to be doing. And then eventually opportunities will start coming to a point where you'll just feel inclined to do this outreach because you're seeing that you're getting opportunities. But in order to get to that level of activation, it's like an activation threshold that I think about, that I've seen a lot of profile builders get to. And once they get to, their behavior completely changes. When they get to a point, say, where they're getting 2-3 profile building opportunities every month, they just are more inclined to do outreach. And it's really about getting to that point where you are seeing the kind of feedback you want to be seeing from doing the kind of outreach you should be doing. That is when I've noticed that people's behavior just completely changes. So to get to that point, you should really be focusing on a daily target, something that's more realistic, something that's more reachable, instead of focusing on some total outcome that might be 5,000-10,000 messages, which is it's the same behavior. It's just a different way to see that behavior. Also, feel free to start asking questions. Another thing that comes up all the time is, how do I get noticed by the people I reached out to? Now, getting noticed it's not just about doing the outreach and showing up in front of someone and just waiting for them to. Oh, wait, there's a question. Anna asks, does reviewing proposals sent for a project count as judging reviewing the work of others if it is within your company? No. However, that kind of evidence can potentially help with leading a critical role depending on the project. But if it's just done within your company, it's probably not going to count towards the judge role criterion. You will want to be focusing on activities that you do in your field outside your company. But going back to what I was saying about a second thing that's come up all the time, it's how to get noticed. If you want to get noticed, then you want to not just wait for someone to kind of guess how you can help them. If you're reaching out, especially if you're reaching out to, say, a conference organizer or someone who is in charge of a technical committee or some sort of advisory board, if you are just waiting for people to recognize how you can help, then you're just going to slow things down significantly. It's going to take a lot longer for you to get noticed. So instead of instead of relying on people guessing how you can help, show how your expertise is aligned with the needs of, say, a conference you are reaching out about, or a committee that you want to join, or an advisory board you want to join. It's not as simple as just reaching out and getting noticed and then showing up and then thinking that you're going to automatically get considered for an opportunity. It's probably not going to be the case, especially for the most sought after opportunities. So instead of just waiting around and waiting for people to see that you can contribute to whatever they're working on, focus on how you can help and how that aligns with the needs of the people you're reaching out to. Showing that alignment, even as early as in your initial outreach message, is going to completely transform. It's going to change the kind of feedback you're going to get. And this goes not just for outreach by sending messages and emails. It also goes, it's also applicable to conversations that you have with people. If you want to get noticed by people in the conversations you have, say at local chapter events of organizations you are a part of, ask about what they are working on, what their needs are for those activities they are working on, and how you can help meet those needs. Or you can even suggest that you can meet those needs by mentioning that you have expertise in certain areas, and then see how these people respond. That is the overall attitude, the overall perspective you want to take when doing outreach, both in-person conversations and in online conversations with people through messages and email. So those are just two things that I wanted to cover. Anyone have questions? And in the meantime, I can also briefly go through some of the resources that I share through my paid newsletter. So as part of my paid newsletter, you will get access to my profile building opportunities database, which is what you're seeing right now. It's a spreadsheet of hundreds of profile building opportunities that I've categorized by criteria that I've listed out, and I've broken down. Seems like my screen stopped sharing. But yeah, going back to the profile building opportunities database, which we'll get access to as part of my newsletter. So there are hundreds of opportunities in the spreadsheet broken down by field. And these are just the kinds of opportunities that you want to be going for to start building your profile. And they're more like starting points, because once you get involved in some of these opportunities, you'll start to meet the kinds of people who are involved in other kinds of activities who could then refer you to profile building opportunities. So think of these opportunities as starting points for profile building. Something else you get access to are reviews of AO decisions. These are decisions that go into USCIS's reasoning behind EB-1A, U-turn NIW, and O1. They go into why USCIS initially denied an EB-1A NIW or O1 petition. And from these decisions, I share profile building insights. And I review these decisions occasionally. And something else you get access to are video resources. These are recorded conversations with EB-1A recipients, and I ask questions that I get all the time, like how someone claimed leading a critical role, how someone claimed original contributions, how to put together strong reference letters. These are the kinds of questions that I get all the time that I have asked some of these EB-1A recipients. Something else you get access to as part of my paid newsletter is my private group, as well as the group chat within the newsletter, where people have been actively sharing opportunities with each other, because there are a lot of leaders within professional organizations within the group chat of my newsletter. I've also been seeing a lot of people work together on papers, on articles for technical publications. They have been sharing collaboration requests, and I've had people tell me that they've been able to find co-authors for papers, contributors to book chapters, and they've been able to work together on a lot of authorship opportunities. So that's something I've been seeing a lot of in my private group. So yeah, that's just a bit about my newsletter. But anyone have questions, feel free to ask questions in the chat. Not asks. Would it raise eyebrows if UOCS sees most of the activities are all within a few months when we are profile building? That is something that could potentially come up. Yes, USCIS has questioned profiles on the basis of sustained acclaim. It's not necessarily the right standard, but there's a lot of subjectivity when it comes to the standard of sustained acclaim. So yes, that does come up. So that's why sometimes some lawyers will tell you to try to do things within 6 months to a year instead of 2-3 months. But you can also just go for it if you have, say, the sustained acclaim element within, say, your leading critical role. You have had years of working within a leading or critical role context. Then in that case, then if that's something you are not concerned with and you are fine with, then as in fine with getting questioned potentially, then of course you can go 3 months. But if you are concerned about getting questioned on the basis of sustained acclaim, then it's probably best to try to profile build for 6 months to a year at least. Shelley asks, please share some free materials to build your network. So that's something you can see already in a lot of my posts. I do share quite a bit of resources about this, but yeah, perhaps I'll put together a guide within my LinkedIn newsletter about how to build your network for EB-1A. It honestly just comes down to outreach. It's essentially what I'm doing as well. So within my newsletter, what I am doing is I am constantly reaching out to people who have access to the kinds of opportunities that people will want to get access to. And it just takes like 50 to 100 messages and emails a day. That's the kind of threshold you want to be going for. If you really want to get access to peer review opportunities, to authorship opportunities, to conference speaking opportunities, it's just going to come down to hundreds of messages a month. And then probably like 20 to 30 phone calls a month where you actively present how you can directly help the person you have reached out to. And it comes down to also understanding how you can help them. If you don't really include that in the conversations you are having, you can have lots of conversations and still get no profile building opportunities. Because what an opportunity really is it's just a way for you to help with your expertise and get recognized for it. And if you can't show how you can help because you don't understand how you can help, because you don't understand what these people need, then you will probably not get any profile building opportunities. But yeah, for those kinds of materials, you can just look at my LinkedIn newsletter. I talk about outreach all the time. And if you're interested in co-authors, in collaboration requests, and getting access to some of these industry people who are in these professional organizations, you can find them within my private group, which is a part of my paid newsletter, which is $12 per month. Vignesh asks, does conducting interviews, 100 plus interviews for various roles at FANG tier companies count towards judging criteria for EB-1A? No, but this does count towards leading a critical role because you're showing that you have a high level of expertise, so high that you have been tasked with conducting these interviews. So it could count towards leading a critical role, but it probably will not count towards judging. Ankar asks, how many research papers would one need to start getting peer reviews and mentorship opportunities? You don't need research papers to get peer review opportunities. You just need to do a lot of outreach. Outreach as in go to, say, IEEE conferences, go to IEEE's or ACM's conference calendar, go to each conference, go to the committee section for each conference, and reach out to everyone who is listed on that page, showing what you can offer, how you can help, and what you think they potentially need in terms of experts to do peer review. 9 times out of 10, you're probably not going to get a reply. But when you do get a reply, that could in itself lead to peer review opportunities. And I say this because I've seen this actually happen. I've seen people do outreach, and so much outreach, that they've been able to even get onto these conference committees. Like, I've seen this within my newsletter. Someone actually reached out to a conference that I had listed in my profile building opportunities database, an IEEE conference, and he was able to join the program committee through that email. So, and it just comes down to probably what most people experience as a problem when profile building. It's not really a skills problem. It's not like they don't have the expertise. It is just that they don't have the visibility from the right people. Like, they could be strong experts in a field that is in demand. They just don't have the right visibility and the right referrals to get into certain opportunities. And that is also a problem I'm trying to solve within my newsletter by, on my end at least, reaching out to as many people as possible who have access to these opportunities. I can help solve this visibility problem for a lot of very top professionals who probably don't have time to send out hundreds of emails and messages a week, but just need that visibility. Like, they're highly qualified. They just need the right people to see their credentials. But yeah, there's no specific threshold. You can just start getting peer review opportunities. Mentorship opportunities depends on the kinds of mentorship you're talking about. If it is just mentoring for professionals, then you can just get those if you can just get involved in the right organizations to get those. You can get into IEEE and then try to get involved in their volunteer program, and their volunteer program sometimes has mentorship opportunities. Or if you want to start mentoring people for research papers, if that's specifically what you want to get into, then it's probably going to come from either knowing professors or getting involved in the right research conferences on their committees. I'm sure there are plenty of other ways, but those are the two ways that come to mind. Anyone else have questions? Something else that comes up pretty often now, I'm seeing a lot of people do, is review book chapters. So perhaps a lot of these publishers are starting to look at industry professionals to help review book chapters or contribute to book chapters. Definitely seen this happen in AI a lot, where there's been a lot of interest from publishers in getting people to contribute book chapters, specifically people who have practical experience with AI. So that's something I've been seeing. So if that is something of interest to you, you might want to start speaking to some publishers. You might want to start speaking to publishers who are interested in working with industry professionals. Same goes for industry conferences. A lot of industry conferences, they have not industry conferences, but a lot of research conferences now have industry tracks. They're starting to include industry professionals in the papers lineup. So that is definitely another place to go for authorship opportunities as an industry professional. Jim asks, as for the publication, how to differentiate formal publication versus blog and article. So one standard is that this is based on something that a lawyer told me a couple of days ago. Something looks like a blog or article. Like, if something looks like a blog, even if it's not a blog, USCIS still might interpret it as a blog, and as a result, not weigh it as heavily as, say, a research publication. Usually the standards, the markers I look at are, is this publication published by a technical professional organization? A professional organization that has a strong technical base. And you can see that based on who is a part of this organization, who is on the committees, who's running the organization. So something like IEEE, for example, is probably going to pass that test. And that's why anything associated with IEEE tends to be weighed heavier than anything that is not able to show a strong technical base. That is one way to think about this distinction between formal publications versus blogs and articles. Look at the organization that is in charge of publishing the article. Nandita asks, how many hackathons peer reviews are enough? It's not really about the number of peer reviews in hackathons. Even one example can be enough to meet the judge rule criterion. I would say 2 to 3, but it really depends on the quality of the hackathons and peer reviewing you're doing. But if you have 2 to 3 examples of judging, you might want to start focusing on other criteria that you're targeting as well, instead of doing more judging, because judging is one of the more straightforward criteria to meet. You can meet it on a plain language level and be able to get it granted. Krupal asks, working as a manager for a team of 5 to 6 research scientists at Pharmaceutical Institute can be considered as evidence of participation, either on a panel or individually as a judge of the work of others in the same or allied academic field. Seems like you are doing this as part of your work, as part of your job, so no. Might help with leading a critical role, but you might want to show examples of judging that are outside of your work at your company. Yeah, you're welcome, Jay. Someone messaged me with a question. What is the number you have to be targeting when it comes to reaching out to judging peer review opportunities per week? Don't think there's a number of opportunities for you to target. It's more about the number of people you reach out to. And yeah, at the start, it's going to be very outreach heavy. That's what I've seen. And it's quite common for people to ask this question of like, what do I need? Like how many opportunities do I need to be targeting a week? Well, the reality of profile building is that most opportunities are actually not publicly visible. It's not like they're just like floating around everywhere. There's no like, there's no list of people you can just target automatically. You're going to have to identify these people. And I do try to help with this as much as possible, but you're going to have to identify the people who have access to these opportunities. I think it's more about getting in touch with the right people. How many of those people do you want to be getting in touch with per week? And I think 2 to 3 is plenty. If you can get 2 to 3 people, say you're going for hackathon judging. And this is something that I'm speaking from personal experience too, because again, I'm doing a lot of this outreach as part of my newsletter. I've been able to get in touch with several hackathon organizers. They're literally organizers. They're able to organize hackathons because they have access to companies who are interested in working with them. They have access to startups that are interested in getting their products reviewed. They have access to a massive audience that is willing to participate in this review process. So getting in touch with these kinds of people and showing that you are able to help them, because judging is a big component of these events, showing you can help them. How many of these people do you want to get in touch with a week? 1 to 2, maybe 3. That's plenty for getting access to the right opportunities. And that is the approach I personally take. And I've been trying to introduce as many of these people as possible to people in my newsletter. That is what you want to be doing. Getting in touch with the people who have access to the right opportunities. And that doesn't come down to the quantity of opportunities you're able to target, but more so how many people who are well connected in your field, how many of those people are you going to be able to get to vouch for you and refer you to opportunities? In fact, just getting like 5 of these people to refer opportunities to you every month, let's say they just refer 1, that's 5 a month, which is quite a decent number. Anyone else have questions? Also, for those of you in my newsletter, if you aren't able to find people to work with, just ask me and I can introduce you to people. I'm just trying to put together a spreadsheet. There is this spreadsheet right now, but I don't think people are really filling it out. But there's a spreadsheet right now within my newsletter resources that documents every single person in the newsletter, and they're able to describe their background, and it's for people who want to work with other people. But if you do need an introduction, just let me know. Ankar asks, is it recommended to have the employer sponsor the O1 EB-1 visa, or would hiring your own attorney services be a better option to increase one's chances? From what I've heard, O1 is employer driven, so they're probably going to want to hire a lawyer for you, probably the one they are working with already. But there are employers who will allow you to hire your own lawyer. For EB-1, it is completely driven by you. Of course, you can tell your company about it. From what I've heard, that is. You can tell your company about it, or you can just hire your own lawyer and apply for EB-1A. EB-1B and EB-1C, I believe, are different, but EB-1A you can drive on your own. I don't know the answer to your second question. Would hiring your own attorney be a better option to increase your chances? That is not, that's a question. There's no one answer to that question. ER asks, I am just starting to build my profile. I am a DevOps engineer cloud. Don't have any research articles, publications, citations, pens. Do I need them? Do you need research articles, publications, citations, pens? If you plan on targeting original contributions or authorship, and authorship more likely than original contributions, unless you already have some sort of original contributions claim. For authorship, you probably will need articles. Doesn't have to be research articles, but probably technical magazine articles. At the very least, you can publish professional publication articles, but those could get questioned depending on how they look. Citations are not needed unless you are presenting a research-focused profile. Patents are definitely not needed for authorship. They could be needed for original contributions, but it depends on the criteria you are targeting. Anyone else have questions? Any other questions? Oh yeah, for those of you here, I am hosting an O1 EB-1A insight session on Wednesday with someone in my private group who got approved for EB-1A and O1. And she was able to present a very strong judge role claim. So if that's something of interest, definitely sign up for that event, which is a part of my newsletter. Vignesh asks, on hackathons for judging criterion, do college hackathons sponsored by major companies in the field count, or is it discounted by USCIS as judging the work of students? Judging the work of students is typically not considered for the judge role criterion, simply because students are not considered as professionals in your field. So you will want to go for industry hackathons, as in hackathons that involve industry professionals. Anyone else have questions? Anyone else have questions? What all things satisfy peer review judging criteria? Judging, if you want to meet judging, you will want to look at anything where you can show that you're judging the work of other professionals in your field. That could be peer reviewing. That could be judging hackathons that involve industry professionals. The reason why I say peer reviewing is because it's literally mentioned in the policy manual that peer reviewing is counted as judging. So that's why peer reviewing can be a very strong form of judging evidence. Outside of that, you could be reviewing open source contributions for a project. You could be reviewing startup pitch competitions or pitch competitions in general. You could be reviewing applications for technical committees that you are a part of. You could be reviewing, I think in the policy manual, it even says you could be reviewing PhD theses as part of like a dissertation committee. So there are quite a few examples of judging. Don asks, is getting a national scholarship only given to selected candidates based on performance in a particular field for MSc considered an award? Probably not. It really depends on, let's pull up the policy manual. So the first standard you're going to have to meet, okay, were you the recipient of prizes or awards? Yeah. Now, you need to show that the award is a lesser nationally or internationally recognized prize or award, which the person received for excellence in the field of endeavor. So you need to show that this award, this scholarship, is considered a lesser nationally or internationally recognized prize. Now, the reason why scholarships can be difficult for this standard is, and it even says here, while many scholastic awards do not have the requisite level of recognition, it's literally saying most scholastic awards do not have this level of recognition. And it's because they are probably not considered nationally or internationally recognized. Now, you can always make the argument, since you're saying national scholarship, you could argue that it is a national award. It's just that showing that it's because of you're also going to show that it's because of your field of excellence. It's because of excellence in your field of endeavor. So there are a couple of things you're going to have to show here. It's not traditionally the kind of award that would help you get the awards criterion, but you could try. Also, awards in general is difficult to meet. It's not really a criterion that industry professionals at least like to target. I mean, I know that industry professionals always ask about awards, but it's just not typical to get awards in your field as an industry professional. I mean, some people do get awards, but not a lot of them don't. Even very senior professionals. Yeah, so if you look here, while an award open to members of a well-known national institution or professional organization may be nationally recognized. So if you can show national recognition for the award and it was because of excellence in your field of endeavor, then perhaps you could use that as an award. But traditionally, it's just difficult. Simply because you're getting the award may not have been for excellence in your field of endeavor. Because again, that could get questioned. Like if you're an industry professional, your field of endeavor is not going to be as a student of some subject. It's going to be for your work as an industry professional. So that's where you could get questioned. All right, last question, Nihar. Since I am a DevOps engineer, computer science, does having AWS certification, CCNA, should not count towards awards criterion? Probably not. It's difficult to argue that unless you can show, like this is where you could get questioned. You could get questioned on the field, the field of endeavor aspect of things. Excellence in the field of endeavor. So with the awards criterion, there is a lot of subjectivity when it comes to what excellence in the field of endeavor means. Some officers could argue that, some officers could think that you have to have like this really high standard where maybe you stood out of like tens of thousands of other professionals for this award, and that's why you got the award. That is their standard of field of that is their standard of excellence in their field of endeavor. So it's not exactly the most compelling evidence, but again, it depends on how selective was this award and how strong is the evidence you have to show that these certifications demonstrate excellence in your field of endeavor. Because if it's just run-of-the-mill certifications, then probably not going to be as compelling as, say, an award that only gets granted to like 50 engineers out of thousands every year. Steve asks for a tech industry professional, Would scholarly articles be equivalent to tech articles accepted by publications such as Medium publications, and high-profile journals? How many? Not Medium publications. For EB-1A, definitely not Medium publications. High-profile journals, yes. How many? It could be one. It could be two. One is enough. It's just that if you get questioned on that one journal, then you have nothing to fall back on. So perhaps two at least. There is no threshold that will help you grant the authorship criterion. You could get authorship simply on the basis of one published article that is high quality in a journal, not in Medium. So I would say 2 to 3 is what I usually tell people. Is applying to O1 and EB1 at the same time advisable? Also, how much of an additional effort criteria is needed to get the EB1 compared to the O1? Now, that depends on your personal immigration situation, so you are going to want to speak to a lawyer about that. Now, as to the difference between EB1 and O1 and the effort required, O1 is a far lower standard than EB1A. EB1 there are like 3 variations of EB1: EB1A, EB1B, and EB1C. So if you're talking about EB1A, then the standard is much higher for EB1A. That being said, you can reuse a lot of the evidence as presented for O1 for EB1A. Nana asks, some IT certifications grant you membership to an association. For example, Microsoft Certified Professionals, does this count as membership of association? Not really, because there's the subjective element to the membership criterion. It is outstanding achievements. You need to show that the membership that you claim requires its members to have outstanding achievements. Now, how you argue that is going to be the difficult part, because if it's something that people just automatically grant you, then no. Yeah, if you automatically get it, then no, it's not really going to count towards the membership criterion. Niar asks, Kubernetes Kubeshana is a very well-known award given to people who excel in container space. Right now, there are only 160 members in the entire USA who has this, whereas other countries have more. Okay, in that case, then perhaps you could make an argument for how this is given to people who have excelled in your field of endeavor. Yeah. As long as you can back that claim up, then perhaps it could help with the awards criterion. Why are Medium articles accepted by high-profile publications such as Towards Data Science be not qualified compared to a high-profile journal, given that both have review accept processes? Well, the reason is because USCIS does not like things that look like blogs for some reason. There seems to be an academic slant within USCIS such that officers seem to like research publications and publications tied to top research professional organizations instead of things that look like blogs. It's just a bias that some lawyers have shared with me. I mean, there's nothing to say that you cannot use these professional publications as evidence. You can. It's just that it could get questioned. I'm not saying it will get questioned. I'm just saying it could, because there's this bias against things that look like blogs, whereas there's less of a bias towards, say, IEEE technical magazines, ACM technical magazines. Anyone else have questions? All right, answer a few more questions. Yeah, anything that looks like a blog, anything that is unfamiliar media like podcasts, like YouTube channels, for some reason get questioned by USCIS. Now, if you can overcome their line of questioning, then yeah, could get accepted. It's just that you should be prepared to get questioned on that evidence. And I guess some people just don't like to get questioned on the evidence they present. So if given a choice, they tend to prefer to to show evidence that they know will be less likely to get questioned. And that is why people tend to publish in IEEE magazines. How can I work with you directly to build my profile? And also, can you please give me your intro, as I found you a few days ago in LinkedIn? Feel free to message me on LinkedIn, and yeah, feel free to schedule a profile building call. That is what I currently do with working with people directly. I mean, I have worked with some people one-on-one in the past, but I haven't really been doing that as often nowadays. I've been more so just doing more profile building calls so I can help more people on an individualized basis. And I've also just found that it's not as useful for people to, I mean, I guess it depends on the person, but just feel free to reach out to me and we can set up a profile building call if you would like help. So just message me on LinkedIn. Can you combine two or more weak points to gain the criteria, like two national awards that are not the strongest? No. So there's this assumption that you can just combine low quality evidence. And again, nothing is definitive in this space, in that it's not like you can just you can submit low quality evidence. You can do all these things that people tell you not to do, and you can still get a criterion. It's just that, generally speaking, combining low quality evidence is not how you meet a criterion. That is why publishing like 50 papers that are very low quality could still get you questioned. It's possible to still get the criterion. It's just that if you're asking if this is the approach to take, you would rather get a very high quality award than two not very high quality awards. Because think about the kind of argument you're trying to make with EB-1A. You're showing how you have risen to the top of your field. So shouldn't you be presenting evidence that shows that you're risen to the top of your field? So would you rather then present one award that shows that you're risen to the top of your field, or two awards that don't really show that you're risen to the top of your field? Because if you do the two not very high quality awards, then you're not really advancing your overall argument that you're risen to the top of your field. And some officers may then take the approach of your awards, and this is not, again, necessarily the correct standard, but from what I've heard from lawyers, some officers will look at each individual criterion and apply a mini final merits analysis. And they will look at each individual piece of evidence and ask, have you risen to the top of your field based on this piece of evidence? And if the answer is no, then your criterion gets denied. So unless it's vastly easier to get these two low quality awards, you should instead just focus on one high quality award and just use that to claim the criterion. What patterns of mistakes do you normally see for those who fulfill criterions but fall on final merits? The main mistake that I have seen is just not really taking the leading or critical role or original contributions, or both, seriously. As in not really taking seriously your anchor criterion. The foundation of your profile is probably not going to be built on authorship or judging or any of these supplementary criteria. It is going to be built on a foundational criterion, usually leading or critical role or original contributions, or both. So if you just kind of check that as a box instead of really thinking about how your leading or critical role, say, shows that you're risen to the top of your field. And this sounds straightforward, but it takes a lot of time to find the right references, to collect the right evidence, to work with your lawyer, who also has to understand your work. All of this takes a lot of time. But you have to get all this right in order to be able to show a strong anchor criterion. And that anchor criterion can be enough to help you meet final merits. That's something that a lot of people don't really take seriously enough. So that's a common mistake. Thinking that, leading a critical role, I've worked here for like 10, 20 years, so of course I have leading a critical role. I'm just not really going to care about my references. I'm just going to go like spam papers and judging instead. But when you haven't really presented a compelling case narrative, that's where things could fall apart on final merits. I'm not saying they will. I'm just saying that when people don't take their anchor criterion seriously, when they don't take the reference letters seriously, when they don't really think. Also, another thing is, and this isn't as common, but it could happen. If you have a strong anchor criterion, but you focus on low quality activities for judging an authorship, that could take away from the narrative that you're presented that you have risen to the top of your field. Because the assumption is if you have risen to the top of your field, you should be able to focus on high quality activity. You should be getting these activities because you're a high level expert. If you don't get these activities, that's a question mark. That's a why is this person not getting any of these activities? They're supposed to have been able to get some of these activities because they've risen to the top of their field. That's a line of questioning that could lead to like the falling apart of final merits. Because you're essentially saying, I've risen to the top of my field. All this is showing a claim, indicates that I've risen to the top of my field. Oh, but I have these like low quality journals and I have these like low quality judging opportunities. It's almost, you're essentially saying I wasn't able to land anything else. So that's where there's also that, when in fact it could just be because you didn't really do the outreach. You didn't really do the applications to get those higher quality opportunities. You just kind of maybe went like the shortcut route and got someone to like guarantee you low quality opportunities. That could be it. That's another very common mistake. Nana asks, how does USCIS know the quality of a journal? Is there a quality? How does USCIS know the quality of a journal? Is there a quality list we can check? No, there's no list. You have to make the argument for whether something is quality. It's with anything, you're the one in charge of presenting an argument. It's not like you're just going to, like that's with any evidence you present. Don't expect USCIS to do the thinking for you, do the contextual analysis for you. You're going to be the one, you're supposed to be the one to present the quality of evidence. Then by your logic, having judged 5 to 10 opportunities always looks better, as this individual gets invited multiple times, so despite no defined threshold, more is better for final merits. More high quality is better for final merits, not more. That's why I said getting 50 low quality papers is not that great. But if you got invited to like 5, 10 top hackathons for like New York Tech Week, and like A16Z invited you to judge this like venture capital competition or something like that, and you're just getting these opportunities like every single month, and you're getting invited to like the top incubators to judge, that's much stronger as evidence because you're getting all these top names, you're getting invitations from them. That's what could help with final merits. Final merits is again about showing how you have risen to the top of your field. Your achievements have to indicate that you have risen to the top of your field. Getting high quality invitations, getting involved in high quality organizations, yes, that's strong final merits. Would you say it just boils down to strong evidence then quantity? Yes, it boils down to strong argument then quantity. Quantity is not argument. Quantity is a list. A list doesn't automatically argue anything. Whereas an argument is, this is what I've done and this is what it shows. A list is, here are like 100 different things I've done. Maybe one of those things will show I have risen to the top of my field, but I'm not going to say anything about any of them. I'm just going to list everything out and just kind of like let you draw the conclusions. So yeah, a strong argument based on strong evidence matters far more than quantity. Anyone have questions? Any other questions? Being explicit in the evidence is AIs needed? Is all that's needed? Well, you need to create a narrative around your profile. That's what you need to be doing. It's about a narrative. It's about an argument. It is also not about just shouting over and over again that you have risen to the top of your field without really unpacking what that means. You have to create context. You have to create comparison. You have to show, out of the tens of thousands of professionals who have done this exact thing that I've been doing, I have risen to the top of those professionals because of this, this, and this. And this is how. Thanks. So you're a lawyer, by the way. No, I'm not a lawyer, but I do work with several top immigration lawyers, and that is where my profile building insights come from. What can we do for final merits? What you can do is strengthen your leading or critical role, strengthen your original contributions claim if you have an original contributions claim. Don't just try to claim it if you have no original contributions. What can you do? Well, you can focus on the highest quality evidence and highest quality activities. Focus on activities that show that you've risen to the top of your field. So go for the highest quality, say, judging opportunities, the highest quality authorship opportunities, especially opportunities tied to your level of expertise in your field. That is what you need to be doing for final merits. Showing that your achievements indicate that you have risen to the top of your field. All right, there's another question. Someone messaged me. How does hosting a workshop in a related working field compare to presenting a paper or speaking at a conference? Depends on the workshop. Presenting at a conference. Presenting a paper at a conference or speaking at a conference is always a great way to get noticed by top professionals in your field. A workshop could also do the same, but presenting a paper at a conference could also help you get published in that conference's journal. So that is something to take into account. But I think both are good. It really depends on the workshop. It really depends on the conference. And asks, so if I go to a tech event and meet with other industry leaders, would I tell them if I'm trying to network to build my profile? If you go and meet these industry leaders, you'll want to ask about what they are involved with. Ask about the committees they have joined, the advisory boards they have joined, the organizations they have joined, the events they're trying to organize, and then say, I have this expertise as well, or I know someone with this expertise, or ask, oh, like that's really great that you're involved in these organizations. How can I contribute? How can I help you? How can I help you grow this organization? How can I help you organize this conference? And they might tell you, oh, like we're actually looking for more speakers. We're actually looking for more judges. We're looking for more committee members with this specific background. And then if they really had a good conversation with you, they will ask, do you know anyone who has this background? And if that is you, then you can say, oh, I have this background too. I have this specific skill set. I have this expertise, and I can help you with this specific thing because I have this, this, and that expertise. And then they might say yes, or they might say no. But you can say, but if I am not the right person for the opportunity, I do know people who could help you. And that is how you maintain that contact, because you actually help them in some way, even though it didn't directly benefit you. So when another event comes up, when something else comes up, they will think of you because you helped them. That is what you need to be doing. Do that like 1,000 times, and you will probably start getting opportunities every single week, every single month. And I say this because there are people in my private group who have done this hundreds of times and have been getting so many speaking opportunities that they have been unable to take on any more speaking opportunities. They are actively declining speaking opportunities. I know at least 2 people in my private group who have gotten to this stage. Actually, more than that, but 2 people that I know of that I've spoken to. All right, I'll do a couple more questions. Another question for EB-1A: Can you give an example for software engineering or AI that can satisfy the exhibition criteria? I cannot, because I have never seen anyone satisfy this criteria in these fields. Because it's artistic exhibitions. All right, I'll do just a couple more questions. And again, as some of you are interested in working with more profile builders, there are quite a few of them who are doing a lot within my private group, which is part of my newsletter. Anyone else have questions? Any other questions? And yeah, if some of you are looking at O1, a lot of this applies to O1A. It's again about showing how you've risen to the top of your field, but it's not really showing about how you've risen to the top of your field. As in the top 5% of your field, more like top 20 to 25%. Anyone else have questions? All right, just one last thing I'll cover is it's all about your case narrative. It's about showing how you've risen to the top of your field. You should be essentially telling a story to USCIS for what you have done in your throughout the many years you worked in your field. It doesn't even have to be your field. It can be like a general occupation. That's just something to keep in mind. It can be a general occupation. It can even be a skill set that you have, like a technical skill set. Like a lot of you are contractors, for instance, and you worked in multiple companies because of this relationship that your contracting company has with many different US organizations. You may have been contracted out probably because of your expertise in a particular technical skill set. So you can argue on the basis of that skill set. So it's all about building a narrative. It's not about being in a specific domain. It's not about it's not like tech cases are favored over like other kinds of fields. It's about showing how you've risen to the top of any field. And you can define field as occupation. You can define you can show that you've risen to the top of a general field. You can show that you've risen to the top of a niche field. It's just how you structure things. It's about creating that argument to show that you have risen to the top of your field. And the less questioning you get, the more you minimize the number of questions you get by not including sketchy evidence, by not including shady activities, the more likely you are to get through without just getting questioned. So that's just something to take into account when building your EB-1A profile. It is about an argument, about a narrative. Also, just always focus on quality, because if you focus on quantity, what you could end up doing is including lots of low quality opportunities that could open up lines of questioning that you probably don't want, especially if you already have a strong anchor criterion. The last thing you would want is to get questioned simply on the basis of some shady judging activity that you did when everything else is extremely strong. So that's just something to keep in mind for EB-1A profile building. Right, so I don't see any other questions. So thanks everyone for joining today's live stream.